I'm Jim, and this is Jim's Fix-It Shop, and we're going to start putting Paul's drivetrain together. He opted to go with a 4-pinion gear instead of an 8 because he doesn't do anything but mow with this. So the extra expense, we don't need an 8-pinion gear if you're not going to be using one of the attachments that they used to sell with these machines. So we're going to start assembling this. I think I want to put I want to put some grease on this thing. Now, I've had a few questions, I might as well talk about this, on my right angle attachment and my pistol grip grease gun. I bought this at Napa store here in Fruitport, and it works really, really well. For one thing, you only need one hand to operate it. And this is extremely nice to get into tight spots for greasing. I originally bought that when I had a Blazer, and the only way I could grease the lower front ball joints was with that, because the axle and boot is directly above it, and it really messed up trying to grease it. And seeing when I bought the machine, I had to put all 4 ball joints on it. I didn't want to wear them out. Well, that makes them nice tight fit. Okay, now we'll put some I think we can get rid of this for now. And we'll start putting this together. We're going to put the pinions in here. You want to put one up, one down. And what I mean by that is the pinion spacers. Is that what they're called? Yep. One sits like this on the gear, and the next one sits this way on the gear, the big gear. So when you put these together, you want them aligned like this, not like this. Now, there's a lot of differences between the old machine and the new parts, but when you go to order parts for an older machine, if they've been discontinued, they substitute new parts. And a lot of times you're going to have to do some fabricating to make them work. Now, this machine I don't know if it's ever been worked on, but there was a lot of parts missing in the assembly process. I got an old cover out, and you can see I've had some tools out here to measure the depth. I wanted to know the depth of this cover compared to the old one, to see if maybe they never put the Belleville washers and the little O-rings around this bolt so it doesn't leak. There is room for it, so I am going to put them in there. some Loctite on these bolts. They say not to reuse them, but I see no reason why you can't, as long as you put Loctite on them. I had one viewer get a hold of me and tell me my machine's locked up, I don't know what's wrong with it. So I helped him go through and disassemble the machine. And come to find out, one of the bolts backed out and the gear fell out of place and locked up the machine. So please, when you put it together, if you reuse the original bolts, put some Loctite on them. Save yourself a lot of grief. I'll snug these up with this, and I'll tighten them with a wrench up on the bench. What I did with my glove. Guess I better go the right direction. Yeah, I'll do this the other way around. Shoulder problem, I can push better than I can pull. Okay, that's done. Now need this anymore. Now the bolts that I use are a oddball size. Got one laying over here in a bag. If you have to replace these bolts, you're going to have to grind the ends down. These bolts are, I don't know if you'll be able to read this or not. Get that light on it just right. They are 1 5/16, or 5/16, 1 5/8 inches long. They don't make bolts that size. They're either going to come 1 1/2 or 1 3/4. And if you use a 1 1/2 inch bolt, you're not going to have enough thread in this gear to hold. If you use a 1 3/4 inch bolt, chances are this is going to rub on the backside of the case. So if you have to get new bolts, and you don't want to buy them from Part Street because they're, last I checked, they were like $5 a piece. you're going to have to grind the ends off, which is no big deal. Okay, we'll start putting this together. Now, one thing that was not in this when I tore it apart was these little O-rings and these Belleville washers. That's what they're called. And for you people that don't know, what the heck is a Belleville washer? It's a lock washer. It is an old school lock washer. They don't use them anymore. And outside of Parts Tree, I've never seen one for sale. Now here is a very large version that came off of a lawnmower blade, and you can tell that they are cupped. And the way these work is when you torque them down, you're flattening this out. And if it backs off, the tension in this washer is going to keep it tight until it backs up far enough where the washer's loose. And the way you can use these is you can stack 2 or 3 together. Or I've seen them in machines online. They show them, they'll put one with the cup down, one with the cup up, the next one with the cup down, and the next one with the cup up. And you can stack them that way. Or you can stack them so they nest together. You can see it has a space in there when you stack them that way. It's just an old lock washer. And we're gonna have a couple of these out because them we're missing also. I don't know if I ordered new ones or if I was just going to use my own. I have to deal with it when I get to it. Okay, now we want the hexagon shaft. These are all brand new parts. That goes down in here. And this little goofy thing here, a lot of people ask me, what is that for? Well, it doesn't really guide the chain. That's actually a seal, I guess, where that goes down inside of this case. Let me take this right off of here. And it rubs up against the bottom of the cover. And that's supposed to keep the lube from leaking out and getting into your boots. Well, tell you the truth, you could use some lubrication in the boots to make this thing shift better. And again, how does this go on? Get a lot of questions. That boss that's sticking up, that goes against the gear. So you have clearance for the chain to go through there. Now we're going to put the gear on here. It's a little easier to put the chain on first. Than it is to try to get the chain on after you get it assembled. I don't know if this is going to help. I can't change it. Not when I'm filming. I don't know if I can get you a little closer or not. Let me try to move this tripod. Okay, we got the chain in there. Next we want, they had a thrust washer on here, on the old one, that went up against the end of the hexagon tube. You know what? I forgot to put on what the last guy did. let's see. They just call this a spacer. I forgot to put the little rubber O-ring on and this Belleville washer. Now the spacer. I'm pretty sure I'll have plenty of room for them because the new ones, if you check the crown in them, they're 100 thousandths thick. And an old one that I took out is down to about 55 thousandths. So they do crush when you use them, and you probably shouldn't reuse them. Now we'll put the other O-ring on and the other washer. Did that backwards, sorry. The washer goes on first with the cup side up. You want to capture the O-ring inside that cup. So when you bolt this all together, it flattens out them washers and pinches the O-ring between the washer and the cover or the fender. That's what seals it. Now we can put this down in here. And we have our thrust washer. All right. Now before I forget it, we'll put this other thrust washer on here that goes up against the fender. And that's about all I can do right now, because now we have to go over there and we have to put these new bushings in the fenders. So there's a difference between these. I got to get this one out to see if I can use the new one without machining it. Another difference there is, see them little grooves in there? That's for coolant, thinking word. That's for lubricant to sneak down into, because this is going to be tight against this thrust washer that we just put on. So they have them grooves cut in there so the lube can get down in and lubricate the axle on the bushing. So we're going to have to pop this thing out and see if I can even use it before going to the shop and disassembling or machining it. I'm thinking the difference is just the length sticking out, which should not hurt a thing. Actually, it would give you more bearing surface to make it hold up longer. So I'm gonna get that set up over there and I'll be right back. All right, here we go. I have a ring I made. You can see the bottom's flat, the top is cut on an angle. And that angle matches the dish that's in these fenders. And when that is in here, it sticks up higher than the fender does. So all the force that I'm applying to pop this out is going to be directed right on the surface of this ring where it's touching the fender. So there's less chance of bending anything. And we're just going to put a little spacer block in there. And we're going to press this out. I've never had one that tight. And typically by now they're out. I'm gonna have to find something I can set on there to push that the rest of the way out. I can see I'm gonna have to make something that work. This is too long now. That should work. And it's out. Oh, I see. It has more surface. It has all this surface that actually presses into the fender, where this one only has a short amount. And you can see the difference between the length of these two, which should not hurt a thing. Now to press this back in, these are all pressed in, and I should say they're pressed out from the outside in, and they're pressed in from the inside out. And I want to take a check on this. I want to make sure these things are the same size so they fit in this fender. Yeah, let's see. We have 1 inch, 600. And 30 thousandths. And this one is 2 thousandths smaller. Oh, wait a minute, we get this on here. It's only 1 thousandth smaller. So we shouldn't really have a problem with that. Now what I want to do is I want to get as close to that as I can for support. Now the way you want to orient, or the orientation of these grooves, I always put them up and down when the machine is assembled. So as the oil is splashed around inside of here, it will run down this slope and hopefully go into that little groove and help lubricate this thing. Well, I don't want to crank it on that thing that far. I'll have to swap these back out. Guess we'll put the longest one in. When you use something like this, you want to make sure that you tighten it up so these two surfaces are actually touching and tight. Otherwise, you're just going to rip the threads off that stud. And let's see, we can put this in here for a block. I want to turn that so the orientation is correct. And that is going to be too big, it's going to hit. I need something smaller. Well, I can start it with that. And make sure I got them supports in the right place down there. Yeah, looked like it went in all the way. See, now it does stick out farther, but that's the way all the new ones do. These are a little longer, it gives you more wear surface, and hopefully it'll hold up longer. Now let's see if we can get the other one out of the fender. Now this one's really different. And we're going to have to change this again. Oh, let's try this one. On our plate. Could have been a little longer on that. I'll put this block in here for now. Have to spread these apart, make room for that to drop out of there. Yikes, we don't want to screw that far. I think that one's going to be too long. Okay, let's give that a try. Wow, them things are in there tight. Man. Now again, I want to check these diameters. This is 627. And this is 627, so we're good with that. But I want to check a couple of things. They look to be the same as far as the length and the diameters, but this one has a recess cut into it. And I don't know why. The thrust washer rubs up against that, so I have no idea why they did that. It just gives you less bearing surface for the thrust washer to rub against. So I don't see any problem with that. We're gonna press that thing in there. And on the inside of this, where I have the angle, I also have an angle cut on the inside to line up with the dish sticking out on that. I think we can get that in there with them touching. Now we want to have that grease fitting sticking kind of down when it's on its wheels and to the side. And let's press this bad boy in. It's going in a whole lot better than it came out. I'll tell you that. Put that back up in there, otherwise I run into it when I'm walking by. Looks good to me. Let's go back over there. Hang on. Well, this video is starting to get a little long, so I'm going to split it right here and put the rest on another video. So until next time, work safe, have fun, and I'll talk to you soon. So long.